He dropped to one knee before she'd even finished her airport coffee, and in that instant, every warning bell in Lisa's head should have been blaring. But there she was, frozen, caught between shock and a strange, dizzy hope, while Daniel grinned up at her like he'd just won the lottery. Welcome to 90 Day Scoopus. I'm Oliva, and if you think you've seen fast proposals before, buckle up, because this one might just break the internet. If you're as stunned as I am, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, would you say yes to a proposal from someone you've known for less than an hour? Because Lisa is about to make a choice that could change everything. Lisa, a single mom from the Midwest, has always been a romantic, but after 5 marriages and a string of heartbreaks, she promised her daughter Faith that this time would be different. No impulsive decisions, no secrets, and definitely no wedding rings before she told the whole truth. But promises are easy to make when you're thousands of miles away, and a lot harder to keep when you're standing in a sweltering Nigerian airport staring into the eyes of a man who's already planning your future together. Daniel, on the other hand, is all charm and ambition. He's made it clear to anyone who'll listen that he wants a new life in America. And Lisa, with her open heart and open wallet, looks like his golden ticket. He's been dreaming of this moment for months, rehearsing every line, every gesture, every smile, and now that Lisa's finally here, he's not wasting a second. But behind the smiles and the sweet words, both of them are hiding things. Lisa hasn't told Daniel about her real relationship history, or the fact that she's been with women for most of her adult life. She's glossed over the messy parts, hoping that if she can just get through this trip, maybe she'll find the courage to come clean. Daniel, meanwhile, has his own secrets. He's been messaging dozens of women online, casting a wide net, and Lisa isn't the only one he's promised the world to. His friends know it, his family suspects it, and even Lisa's daughter Faith has warned her that something feels off. But love, or the hope of it, makes people do wild things. And right now, Lisa is teetering on the edge of a decision that could either save her or ruin her. Somewhere over the Atlantic, Lisa stared out the tiny airplane window, her mind racing faster than the jet engines. She told Faith she wouldn't do anything reckless, but every mile brought her closer to Daniel and further from the promises she'd made. Her phone buzzed with old messages, her daughter's voice in her head, reminding her to be careful, to be honest, to remember who she was before all the heartbreak. But the truth felt heavy, and Lisa wondered if she'd ever have the courage to lay it all out for Daniel. 5 marriages, years spent loving women, a lifetime of secrets tucked away behind a nervous smile. She'd rehearsed her confession 100 times, but now, with Daniel waiting on the other side of the world, the words felt impossible to say. Meanwhile, Daniel was pacing his hotel room, checking his reflection, rehearsing his lines. He'd told his friends this was his shot, his chance to rewrite his story and escape the chaos of his hometown. He'd picked out the perfect shirt, practiced his accent, and planned every detail of Lisa's arrival. Flowers, music, a hotel she'd paid for, everything designed to sweep her off her feet and make her feel like the only woman in the world. But underneath the excitement, Daniel's mind was fixed on one thing: America. He'd seen others make it out, watched their lives transform overnight, and he wanted that for himself. Lisa was kind, generous, and maybe a little too trusting. He knew what she wanted to hear, and he was ready to say it no matter what it took. As the plane began its descent, Lisa's anxiety spiked. She wiped her palms on her jeans, checked her makeup in the bathroom mirror, and tried to study her breathing. She wanted to believe in the fairy tale, but Faith's warnings echoed in her mind. Was Daniel really in love with her, or was she just another ticket to a better life? Was she about to make the same mistakes all over again? The fear of being alone battled with the hope that this time, things could be different. She promised herself she'd tell Daniel the truth, but deep down, she knew how easy it would be to get swept up in the fantasy. Lisa's heart pounded as the wheels touched down, and she wondered if she was about to step into a dream or a disaster. The price of chasing fantasy is always higher than it seems, and Lisa was about to find out just how much she was willing to pay. The airport doors slid open, and the heat hit Lisa like a wall, thick and humid, clinging to her skin and making her wish she'd packed something lighter. Her heart hammered in her chest as she scanned the crowd, searching for Daniel's face among the sea of strangers. She'd seen him on video calls, always perfectly lit, always smiling. But now, in the harsh glare of fluorescent lights and the chaos of arrivals, everything felt more real and more terrifying. She smoothed her wig, dabbed at her forehead with a tissue, and tried to ignore the voice in her head whispering that she wasn't young enough, pretty enough, or thin enough for a man like Daniel. Every insecurity she'd ever had seemed to rise up at once, threatening to swallow her whole before she'd even taken her first step onto Nigerian soil. Daniel, meanwhile, was waiting just beyond the security barrier, bouncing on the balls of his feet, his eyes darting from the arrivals board to the doors and back again. He'd spent the morning rehearsing his welcome, checking his phone for updates, and making sure the hotel room was perfect. Fresh flowers on the table, chocolates on the pillow, and a playlist of love songs queued up on his phone. He wanted Lisa to feel special, to believe that she was the only woman in the world who mattered. But behind the charm, Daniel's mind was racing with calculations. He needed this to go well. He needed Lisa to fall for him, to trust him, to believe in the story he was selling. Every detail mattered. Every gesture was part of the plan. When Lisa finally spotted Daniel, her breath caught in her throat. He was taller than she remembered, his smile wide and practiced, his arms open as he rushed toward her. For a split second, she let herself believe in the moment, the fairy tale reunion, the promise of a new beginning. Daniel swept her into a hug, spinning her around as if they were the only two people in the world. Cameras flashed. People stared, but Lisa barely noticed. All she could feel was the pounding of her heart and the dizzying rush of adrenaline. Daniel whispered sweet nothings in her ear, telling her how beautiful she looked, how happy he was to finally meet her in person. Lisa blushed, her doubts melting away under the weight of his attention. But even as she smiled for the cameras, a part of her wondered if any of it was real. Daniel's words were perfect, almost too perfect, and his eyes kept flicking to the cameras, to the crowd, to the exit. Was he really as excited as he seemed? Or was this all part of the performance? Lisa tried to push the thought aside, focusing instead on the way Daniel held her hand, the way he guided her through the airport, the way he seemed to know exactly what she needed before she even asked. He was attentive, charming, and completely in control. Lisa felt herself relaxing, letting go of her fears, letting Daniel take the lead. The ride to the hotel was a blur of sights and sounds, honking horns, shouting vendors, the bright colors of Lagos flashing past the window. Daniel kept up a steady stream of conversation, asking Lisa about her flight, her family, her hopes for the trip. He listened intently, nodding at all the right moments, laughing at her jokes, making her feel seen and heard in a way she hadn't felt in years. Lisa found herself opening up, sharing stories she hadn't told anyone in a long time. She wanted to believe that Daniel was different, that this was the start of something real. When they arrived at the hotel, Daniel insisted on carrying her bags, holding the door, and checking them in with a flourish. The room was beautiful, clean, spacious, and filled with little touches that made Lisa feel welcome. There were fresh flowers on the nightstand, a bottle of wine chilling in an ice bucket, and a handwritten note from Daniel telling her how much he'd missed her. Lisa felt a lump rise in her throat, overwhelmed by the effort he'd put into making her feel special. For a moment, all her doubts faded away, replaced by a warm glow of gratitude and hope. But as the evening wore on, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Daniel was attentive. Almost too attentive, always watching her, always anticipating her needs. He seemed to know exactly what to say, exactly how to make her feel wanted. Lisa wondered if he'd practiced these lines before, if he'd used the same gestures on other women. She caught him glancing at his phone more than once, texting someone when he thought she wasn't looking. The doubts crept back in, whispering that maybe she was just another stop on Daniel's journey to a better life. Still, Lisa wanted to believe. She wanted to trust that Daniel's feelings were real, that the chemistry between them wasn't just an act. She let herself be swept up in the moment, laughing at his jokes, letting him hold her hand, letting herself hope for a future she'd almost given up on. But deep down, she knew that trust had to be earned, and that secrets, no matter how well hidden, always have a way of coming out. As the night settled in and the city lights flickered outside their window, Lisa lay awake, replaying every moment, every word, every glance. Was she falling for a fantasy? Or was this the real thing? Was Daniel truly the man he claimed to be? Or was she about to become another cautionary tale? The answers were out there, waiting in the shadows, and Lisa knew that sooner or later she'd have to face the truth. The stakes had never been higher, and the next move could change everything. Music blasted from hidden speakers as soon as Lisa and Daniel stepped out of the airport, and for a split second, Lisa thought she'd wandered into a movie set. Dancers in bright costumes spun and clapped, a crowd gathered, and Daniel beamed as if he'd orchestrated the whole thing just for her. He pulled her into the center, laughing, urging her to dance, and Lisa, jet-lagged, overwhelmed, and suddenly the star of a spectacle, couldn't help but laugh along. For a woman who'd spent years feeling invisible, this was intoxicating. Daniel's arm around her waist, the crowd's cheers, the music pulsing through her chest, it all felt like proof that she mattered, that she was wanted, that this trip was the start of something magical. But as the adrenaline faded, Lisa's mind started to race. Was this how Daniel greeted every woman who landed in Lagos? Or was she truly special? The attention was flattering, but it was also overwhelming. Almost too much. Too soon. Daniel seemed to know exactly how to push her buttons, how to make her feel adored and cherished. He whispered compliments in her ear, told her she was more beautiful in person, promised her the world. Lisa wanted to believe every word, but a small voice inside her wondered if this was all part of a script. She'd read about love bombing, those grand, sweeping gestures that make you feel like the center of the universe, only to leave you spinning when the truth comes out. Was Daniel showering her with affection because he truly cared? Or was he trying to distract her from the questions she should be asking? Lisa's vulnerability was no secret. She'd told Daniel about her loneliness, her failed marriages, her longing for a fresh start. She'd shared her fears and her hopes, and Daniel had listened, nodding, always knowing just what to say. But now, standing in the middle of a crowd, Lisa felt exposed. She wondered if Daniel saw her as a person or as a passport, a way out of a life he desperately wanted to leave behind. The more he praised her, the more she questioned his motives. Was this love? Or was it manipulation? Was she falling for Daniel? Or for the fantasy he'd created? Later that night, as they settled into the hotel room, Daniel's charm didn't fade. He poured Lisa a glass of wine, toasted to new beginnings, and talked about their future together. He painted pictures of life in America. Big houses, safe neighborhoods, endless opportunities. Lisa listened, her heart swelling with hope and fear in equal measure. She wanted to believe that Daniel's dreams included her, that she wasn't just a means to an end. But as the conversation turned to money, Lisa's stomach tightened. Daniel mentioned the cost of the hotel, the price of the dancers, the expenses he'd covered to make her feel welcome. He didn't ask outright, but the implication was clear. Lisa reached for her purse, offering to pay her share, but Daniel waved her off, insisting he wanted to take care of her. Still, the seed was planted. How much was too much to spend on love? How far would she go to keep Daniel happy? Lisa's bank account was already feeling the strain. She'd dipped into her savings to pay for the flight, the hotel, the gifts she'd brought for Daniel and his family. She told herself it was worth it, that you can't put a price on happiness, but the numbers didn't lie. Every swipe of her card brought her closer to the edge, and Daniel's expectations only seemed to grow. He talked about needing a new phone, about helping his family, about the costs of starting a life together in America. Lisa wanted to help, wanted to prove her commitment, But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being tested. Was Daniel's love conditional on her generosity? Would he still want her if she said no? The psychology of love bombing is simple but powerful. When someone showers you with affection, gifts, and attention, it's easy to mistake intensity for intimacy. Lisa knew this, at least in theory, but living it was something else entirely. She craved connection, validation, a sense of belonging. Daniel offered all of that, wrapped in a package of romance and excitement. But real love, she reminded herself, isn't measured in grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's built on trust, honesty, and respect, qualities that can't be bought or faked. As the night wore on, Lisa found herself caught between hope and suspicion. She wanted to believe in Daniel, to trust that his feelings were genuine. But the doubts lingered. Was she being swept off her feet? Or swept into a trap? Was Daniel's affection real? Or was it a mask hiding his true intentions? The answers weren't clear, and Lisa knew she'd have to decide for herself what she was willing to risk for a chance at love. The next morning, Lisa woke up to a flurry of messages from Faith, her daughter's words a lifeline pulling her back to reality. She read them over and over, trying to remember the promises she'd made, the lessons she'd learned from past mistakes. But Daniel was already at her side, smiling, ready to start the day. He handed her a cup of coffee, kissed her cheek, and whispered that he couldn't wait to show her his world. Lisa smiled back, her heart pounding, her mind racing with questions she was too afraid to ask. The line between love and illusion had never felt thinner, and Lisa was about to find out which side she was standing on. Faith's voice echoed in Lisa's mind, sharp and clear even from thousands of miles away. Before the trip, they'd sat together at the kitchen table, the air thick with worry and unspoken fears. Faith had tried to keep her tone calm, but her eyes betrayed her anxiety. She'd seen her mother fall hard and fast before, watched her chase love like it was the only thing that could fill the emptiness left by years of disappointment. This time, though, the stakes felt higher. Faith scrolled through Daniel's social media, searching for red flags, piecing together a picture that didn't quite add up. She asked Lisa if she was sure, if she'd thought about what would happen if things went wrong, if she was prepared to come home alone. Lisa had smiled, brushing off the questions with practiced ease. She told Faith that she was older now, wiser, that she'd learned from her mistakes. She promised she wouldn't rush into anything, that she'd keep her guard up, that she'd tell Daniel the truth about her past before making any big decisions. But Faith wasn't convinced. She'd heard these promises before, seen her mother swept away by sweet words and grand gestures. She begged Lisa to be careful, to remember who she was, to put herself first for once. The fear in Faith's voice was real, and it cut through Lisa's bravado like a knife. Now, in the quiet moments between Daniel's declarations of love, Lisa replayed those conversations in her head. She remembered the way Faith had squeezed her hand, the tears in her eyes as she whispered, "Please, Mom, don't let him take advantage of you." Lisa wanted to believe she was in control, that she could handle whatever came her way. But the truth was, she was scared. Scared of being alone, scared of missing out on a chance at happiness, scared of letting Faith down. She told herself that Daniel was different, that this time would be different, but the doubts lingered. Faith, back home, checked her phone obsessively, waiting for updates, hoping for good news, but bracing for the worst. She wanted to trust her mother, to believe that she'd make the right choices, but the distance made everything harder. Every time Lisa sent a photo or a message, Faith analyzed it for signs of trouble. Was her mom smiling because she was happy, or because she was trying to convince herself that everything was okay? Was Daniel really as charming as he seemed, or was he hiding something? The questions piled up, each one heavier than the last. Lisa rationalized her choices, telling herself that love always comes with risks, that she deserved a shot at happiness, that Faith would understand once she saw how much Daniel cared. She clung to the fantasy, letting it shield her from the reality that was slowly closing in. But Faith's warnings were never far from her mind, a constant reminder that the line between hope and heartbreak is razor thin. Lisa knew she was walking a tightrope, and one wrong step could send everything crashing down. As Lisa drifted off to sleep that night, Faith's words echoed in her dreams, a haunting chorus of love and fear. The tension between fantasy and reality pulled at her from both sides, and Lisa wondered how long she could keep pretending that everything was perfect. The next day would bring new challenges, new choices, and Lisa knew that sooner or later, she'd have to face the truth, not just for herself, but for the daughter who loved her enough to be afraid. Lisa barely had time to catch her breath before Daniel was down on one knee, right there in the middle of the hotel lobby, surrounded by strangers and the faint scent of lilies from the bouquet he'd handed her just moments before. The world seemed to slow down, every sound muffled except for the pounding of her own heart. Daniel's eyes locked onto hers, his voice steady and rehearsed as he asked her to marry him. For a split second, Lisa wondered if she was dreaming. She'd imagined this moment so many times, but never like this. So soon, so public, so overwhelming. Her hands trembled as she looked down at him, the ring box open, the diamond catching the light and throwing tiny rainbows across the polished floor. People around them paused, some pulling out their phones, others whispering and nudging each other, waiting for her answer. Lisa felt the weight of every eye in the room, the pressure mounting with each passing second. Daniel smiled up at her, his expression a perfect blend of hope and confidence, as if he already knew what she would say. He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently, his thumb tracing circles on her skin. Lisa's mind raced, memories of Faith's warnings flashing before her eyes. The promises she'd made, the secrets she still hadn't shared. She wanted to say yes, to believe in the fairy tale. But something inside her screamed for caution. Daniel's urgency was impossible to ignore. He spoke quickly, his words tumbling over each other as he painted a picture of their future together. Life in America, a family, happiness beyond anything they'd ever known. He told her how much he loved her, how he couldn't imagine his life without her, how this was fate. Lisa listened, her heart aching with longing and fear. She wanted to believe him, to trust that his feelings were real, but the speed of it all left her dizzy. Why was he in such a rush? Why did it feel like she was being swept along by a current she couldn't control? The psychology of rushed relationships is as old as time. When emotions run high and logic takes a back seat, it's easy to mistake intensity for intimacy. Daniel's proposal was grand, dramatic, and perfectly timed to catch Lisa off guard. He knew she was vulnerable, knew she craved love and acceptance, knew exactly how to make her feel special. But underneath the romance, there was a sense of urgency that felt less like passion and more like desperation. Lisa wondered if Daniel was proposing because he truly loved her or because he saw her as his ticket to a better life. Was this about love? Or was it about opportunity? Lisa hesitated, her mind spinning with questions she was too afraid to ask. She glanced around the room, searching for an escape, but Daniel's grip tightened, anchoring her in place. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper, promising her the world if she would just say yes. The pressure was suffocating, the expectations crushing. Lisa felt trapped, torn between the fantasy she'd always wanted and the reality that was staring her in the face. She thought of Faith, of the promises she'd made, of the secrets she still carried. Could she really say yes without telling Daniel the truth? Could she risk everything for a chance at happiness? Or was she setting herself up for heartbreak? Daniel's eyes never left hers, his smile unwavering, his confidence unshakable. He waited, patient but insistent, as if he knew that the longer he held her hand, the harder it would be for her to walk away. Lisa's heart pounded, her breath coming in short, shallow bursts. She wanted to believe in the magic of the moment, to let herself be swept away by love. But the doubts refused to be silenced. Was this real, or was she being played? Was Daniel the man of her dreams, or was he hiding something she couldn't see? The room seemed to close in around her. the noise fading into a dull roar as Lisa searched for the right words. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Daniel squeezed her hand again, his eyes pleading, his voice soft and urgent. "Say yes," he whispered. "Let's start our life together." Lisa's heart ached with longing and fear, her mind torn between hope and caution. The answer hung in the air, suspended between them, as the world waited to see what she would do next. Would Lisa give in to the fantasy, or would she listen to the voice inside her begging her to slow down? The moment stretched on, every second heavier than the last, as Lisa stood on the edge of a decision that could change her life forever. Lisa's mind spun as the applause faded, and the hotel lobby returned to its usual rhythm. She hadn't said yes, but she hadn't said no either. Daniel rose from his knee, slipping the ring back into his pocket with a practiced smile, as if he'd already planned for this moment of hesitation. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders, guiding her toward the elevator, whispering reassurances that there was no rush, that he understood she needed time. But every word, every gentle touch, felt like another layer of pressure. Another reminder that the clock was ticking and everyone was waiting for her answer. In the quiet of their hotel room, Lisa tried to catch her breath. Daniel poured her a glass of wine, turned on soft music, and sat beside her on the bed, his eyes never leaving her face. He told her again how much he loved her, how he'd never felt this way before, how he couldn't imagine his future without her. Lisa wanted to believe him, wanted to let herself fall, but the doubts gnawed at her. Was this love? Or was it a performance? Was Daniel truly devoted? Or was he playing a part he'd rehearsed 100 times before? Daniel's charm was relentless. He cooked her dinner, brought her flowers, sent her sweet messages every hour. He talked about their life in America, about the family they'd build, about the happiness that was waiting for them if she would only say yes. Lisa felt herself being pulled in, swept up in the fantasy. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Faith's worried face, heard her daughter's voice warning her to be careful. The stakes felt impossibly high. If she said yes, she could have the love and security she'd always dreamed of, or she could lose everything, including her daughter's trust. The pressure mounted with each passing day. Daniel never pushed, not directly, but his disappointment was clear every time Lisa hesitated. He'd sigh softly, look away, remind her of all the sacrifices he'd made to be with her. Lisa felt guilty for doubting him, guilty for wanting more time, guilty for not being able to silence the voice in her head that kept asking, "What if?" She tried to talk to Daniel about her fears, about her past, but he always steered the conversation back to their future, to the life they could have together if she would only take the leap. Lisa's emotions swung wildly from hope to fear, from excitement to dread. She wanted to believe in the fairy tale, to trust that Daniel's love was real, but the reality was messier than she'd ever imagined. Every decision felt like a gamble, every moment a test. The stakes had never been higher, and Lisa knew that whatever choice she made, there would be no going back. As the sun set over Lagos, Lisa stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker to life. She wondered if she was about to step into her happily ever after, or if she was standing on the edge of a heartbreak she might never recover from. The answer was still out there, waiting, and Lisa knew she couldn't avoid it forever. Night pressed in heavy around Lisa as she sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at her reflection in the darkened window. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside, the silence was thick with everything she hadn't said. Her phone glowed with unread messages from Faith, each one a reminder of the promises she'd made and the secrets she still carried. Lisa's chest tightened with guilt. She'd told Daniel she'd been married twice, but the truth was 5. She'd hinted at a complicated past, but she hadn't told him about the women she'd loved, the years she'd spent hiding parts of herself from everyone, including her own family. Every time she tried to bring it up, the words caught in her throat, swallowed by fear that Daniel would see her differently, or worse, walk away. Daniel, for his part, was starting to sense that something was off. He watched Lisa closely, picking up on her hesitation. The way she avoided certain questions, the way her smile faltered when he talked about their future. He'd heard rumors from friends, whispers about Lisa's past, but he wanted to believe that she was being honest with him. Still, doubt crept in. Was she hiding something that could ruin everything? Was she as committed to this relationship as he was, or was she holding back for a reason? Daniel's own secrets weighed on him too. The messages to other women, the dreams of America, the pressure from his family to make this work. He needed Lisa to trust him, to say yes, to help him build the life he'd always wanted. But trust is a two-way street, and Daniel was starting to realize that he didn't know Lisa as well as he thought. The risk of exposure hung over them like a storm cloud. Lisa knew that if Daniel found out the truth from someone else, the fallout could be catastrophic. He might feel betrayed, used, or worse, decide that she wasn't worth the trouble. But telling him herself felt just as dangerous. What if he left her stranded in a foreign country? What if he told his family, his friends, everyone they knew? The consequences stretched out before her, each one more terrifying than the last. Lisa weighed her options, torn between the need to protect herself and the desire to build something real with Daniel. Honesty could set her free, but it could also destroy everything she'd worked for. The tension between honesty and self-preservation was almost unbearable. Lisa rehearsed her confession over and over, searching for the right words, the right moment, the right way to make Daniel understand. She wanted to believe that love could survive the truth, that Daniel would accept her for who she was, flaws and all. But the fear of rejection was powerful, and Lisa had spent a lifetime learning how to hide the parts of herself that others might not accept. She wondered if Daniel was doing the same, if his charm and affection were masks hiding his own secrets and insecurities. As the days passed, the pressure mounted. Daniel grew more insistent, asking Lisa to open up, to trust him, to let him in. Lisa tried, but every conversation seemed to circle back to the same unspoken questions, the same unresolved doubts. The distance between them grew, even as they shared the same bed, the same meals, the same dreams of a future together. Lisa knew that something had to give, that the truth would come out sooner or later, whether she was ready or not. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, Daniel turned to Lisa and asked her point blank if there was anything she was hiding. The question hung in the air, heavy and unavoidable. Lisa's heart pounded as she looked into his eyes, searching for a sign that he would understand, that he would forgive her. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. The moment passed, and Daniel looked away, disappointment flickering across his face. Lisa knew she couldn't keep running from the truth forever. The secrets, the lies, the fear, they were all closing in, and the consequences were about to catch up with them both. Lisa stood at the window, the city lights of Lagos flickering below, her reflection a ghost in the glass. The ring Daniel had offered her sat heavy in her palm, its cold metal pressing into her skin, a silent question she couldn't escape. She turned it over and over, searching for answers in the way it caught the light, but all she found was the echo of her own doubts. The hotel room felt smaller than ever, the air thick with everything unsaid. Daniel was in the next room, pacing, his footsteps a steady drumbeat of impatience and hope. He'd given her space, but not too much, always close enough to remind her that time was running out. Lisa's mind raced through every conversation, every promise, every warning Faith had given her. She remembered the look in her daughter's eyes, the way her voice trembled when she begged Lisa not to rush, not to lose herself in someone else's dream. But Lisa was tired of being alone, tired of second-guessing every decision, tired of feeling like happiness was always just out of reach. Daniel had made her feel wanted, seen, cherished in a way she hadn't felt in years. Was it so wrong to want to believe in that, even if it meant taking a risk? But the risk was real, and Lisa knew it. She thought about the secrets she still hadn't shared, the parts of her past she'd kept hidden out of fear. She wondered if Daniel would still want her if he knew everything, if his love would survive the truth. She wondered if she could live with herself if she said yes without being honest, if she could build a future on a foundation of half-truths and wishful thinking. The pressure was suffocating, the stakes higher than she'd ever imagined. One word, yes or no, would change everything. Daniel knocked softly on the door, his voice gentle but urgent. He told her he loved her, that he wanted to spend his life with her, that he couldn't imagine a future without her by his side. He promised her the world, painted pictures of a life filled with happiness and security, a fresh start in America where they could leave the past behind. Lisa listened, her heart aching with longing and fear. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that his feelings were real, but the doubts wouldn't let go. She turned to face him, the ring still clutched in her hand. Daniel reached for her, his eyes searching hers for an answer. He told her again how much she meant to him, how much he needed her, how this was their chance to build something beautiful together. Lisa felt the weight of his words, the intensity of his gaze, the hope and desperation tangled together in every syllable. She wanted to say yes, to let herself fall, to believe in the fairy tale. But the voice in her head, Faith's voice, reminded her that love shouldn't come with conditions, that trust had to be earned, that happiness built on secrets never lasts. Lisa's emotions swung wildly, hope and fear battling for control. She thought about the life she could have with Daniel, the adventures, the laughter, the sense of belonging she'd always craved. But she also thought about the risks, the possibility of heartbreak, the pain of betrayal, the fear of losing herself in someone else's story. She wondered if Daniel was truly in love with her, or if she was just a means to an end, a ticket to a better life. The uncertainty gnawed at her, making it impossible to find peace. Daniel's final push was gentle but insistent. He told her he understood her fears, that he was willing to wait, that he would do whatever it took to prove his love. But Lisa could see the tension in his jaw, the impatience in his eyes, the way his hands trembled as he reached for hers. She knew he wanted an answer, needed an answer, and that waiting any longer would only make things harder for both of them. The moment stretched on, the silence between them heavy with possibility. Lisa closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and tried to listen to her heart. She thought about everything she'd been through, everything she'd survived, everything she still wanted from life. She thought about Faith, about the promises she'd made, about the woman she wanted to be. The answer was there, somewhere deep inside her, waiting to be found. Would Lisa say yes and take a leap of faith? Or would she walk away and risk losing the chance at love she'd been searching for her whole life? The question hung in the air, unanswered, as the city lights flickered and the night pressed in around them. The future was uncertain, the stakes higher than ever, and Lisa knew that whatever choice she made, nothing would ever be the same again. Lisa stood in the quiet of the hotel room, the city's pulse humming just beyond the glass, her decision still hanging in the air like a storm that refused to break. Daniel lingered nearby, his eyes searching her face for any sign of hope, his hands fidgeting with the edge of his shirt. The ring sat between them on the table, a silent witness to everything they'd said and everything they hadn't. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The tension was thick, every breath heavy with what might come next. Lisa's heart pounded as she tried to picture her life on both sides of this choice, one path leading to a new beginning, the other to a return home with more questions than answers. Outside, the city lights flickered, and the sounds of Lagos drifted up from the street, car horns, laughter, the distant beat of music. Lisa pressed her hand to the window, feeling the cool glass beneath her palm, grounding herself in the present. She thought about Faith, about the promises she'd made, about the woman she wanted to become. She wondered if she was strong enough to face the truth, to risk everything for a chance at happiness, or if she'd let fear keep her from taking the leap. Daniel watched her, his expression a mix of hope and worry, his dreams of America, and a new life hanging in the balance. As the night wore on, the silence between them grew heavier. Daniel tried to fill it with reassurances, with promises of love and devotion, but Lisa could hear the uncertainty in his voice. She wondered if he was as scared as she was, if he was hiding secrets of his own, if the future he painted was as real as he wanted her to believe. The doubts lingered, refusing to be silenced, and Lisa knew that whatever happened next, the fallout would be impossible to avoid. But this story isn't finished. Not by a long shot. The next chapter is already unfolding, with new twists, new revelations, and new heartbreaks waiting just around the corner. Will Lisa finally reveal her secrets? Or will Daniel's patience run out before she finds the courage to speak? Will Faith's warnings prove true? Or will Lisa and Daniel find a way to build something real out of the chaos? And what happens when the cameras stop rolling and the reality of their choices sets in? If you think this was dramatic, you haven't seen anything yet. The fallout from Lisa's decision is about to shake everything you thought you knew about love, trust, and second chances. So if you're ready for more jaw-dropping moments, more secrets exposed, and more hearts on the line, don't miss what happens next. The story is far from over, and the next episode is where everything changes.